Hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. So we're two Italian women and
The stories we tell
with Erica Martin and
Diane Bovalino.
so if you've invited us back, thank you so much. We totally appreciate that. And so today I think we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be an empath, right, Diane?
Yes, we thought that would be the next place to start.
And also maybe why we chose the name Two Italian Women versus the name Two Empathic Women, right? Because growing up in an Italian, for me, Italian Catholic household, it was really about right and wrong, being dutiful, being a good daughter, right? Being a good person. And so with that comes like a mixed feeling of pride and guilt, right? And like I never felt like I was allowed to be angry. And underneath it, like when you kind of peel back all the different layers, I think we're all kind of angry sometimes about our circumstances or things that are imposed upon us that maybe are not authentic to us. And so I think starting off with identifying what an empath is and how we function in that is a good segue into kind of the rest of the series that we've put together for you. So I don't know, Diane, do you want to start there, or what are you thinking?
No, yeah, I think that's a great place. And I know exactly, as you just mentioned, being raised also as a Catholic, 100% Italian young lady. And I love being Italian and, very attached to that heritage. Yet, I did feel that very much that it was more set up that the women cooked, the women cleaned the kitchen, the men took care of the outdoors.
It's a lot of stereotyping, like
yes,
the female male
yes,
stereotyping.
Yes, and I just remember thinking as a young girl, I'm never going to marry an Italian man.
My father asked me, because he's not Italian, please don't marry an Italian.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. He's like, do whatever you want, but please don't marry an Italian man. Like, I think he was just so afraid of me losing myself in that, and me being more enslaved or wedded to serving someone else than myself.
And I didn't marry an Italian man.
I've never married.
I'm engaged right now and I'm not marrying an Italian man. And my father's my hero. So, so, and he's Italian and he's my hero. So,
so we're not saying this with any disrespect to our Italian heritage, which I think is really such a big part of who we both are. Yes. Obviously, we wouldn't have named it Two Italian Women in the stories we tell because there's such beautiful facets of being raised in this culture. It's like food and love and family and loyalty and honesty and right. Yeah. What else you got? Commitment.
Dedication.
Dedication. That's a good one.
Dedication. I mean, I've been through such difficult times in life. I mean, when I went through chemo, my father was by my side. My father was the man there. I think to today, there was some time I picked out some movie for him and I to watch. And, I don't know if it was the right movie him and I should have been watching. So,
well, it was ready for service purpose, right?
Yeah. So, yeah.
But, you did. You went through a lot. You went through chemo with breast cancer, right? You're a breast cancer survivor. How many years now? I think we talked 14, about that. 14. And we started working in a family support group because both Diane and I have been affected by addiction in very different ways. And I remember there's a t-shirt of all of us in our mom support group. We had like bright pink t-shirts. And I don't remember what they said, but it was like supporting, breast cancer surviving. And so like you meeting even that 7-year mark was a huge, or 5-year, I don't remember.
I think it was 6 year.
6 year. Okay, so it was like such a huge huge deal, right?
It
And
was.
so, the amount of emotional strength and fortitude it took you to go through that, I mean, I have tremendous respect for. For those of you that may know, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer a couple of years ago. And so, cancer's affected my family in a huge way. And I think what it teaches you, if you're really willing to pay attention to the lesson, is that we really are powerless over really two things is what I've been taught, and what I really believe, which is one, who we're going to be, and two, how we're going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those are the only things any of us have control over. So life is always going to throw you situations, circumstances, and things that, are not the things you would have signed up for. Truly, everything you've been through, everything my family's been through. But yet in those moments, they're really the test of who am I going to be? How am I going to rise to this occasion? And a lot of them can break us. That's just the truth. A lot of these can break us. And I think back to times in my life where things were really not things I would have predicted or expected. I felt just really broken. Did you feel the same
Mm-hmm.
way? Or
No, yeah, that's a perfect way to say it.
yeah, I had a spiritual guru who taught me when I went to her, and I was like, I'm just so broken. I have all these broken pieces, and how do I even begin to put them together? And she said, why are you trying to create the very same thing that was broken? It's you don't need to put the pieces back together. You need to create something different. Right. And so I think that's so much about what we promote, right? Within our own lives, but then within the clients that we work with, it's the grieving that goes along with
Mm-hmm.
letting go of what we thought it would or should be. Right. And that's hard for all of us.
Yeah.
I still struggle with that. I'm still a work in progress with that one. Right. So I feel like who we are and who we're going to be are really the only things that we have control over. And so who you were in those moments was, I'm going to be strong. I got to get through this for my kids. I got to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a survivor. I'm not going to allow this to define me. And I really respect you so incredibly much for that, Diane. Really,
Thank you.
really. A good soul. And so when we met in Reiki class, I think we have to say this forthcomingly. We had a person that taught the class. His name was Michael. And Michael said, and this was how many years ago? 5, 6,
4 now.
Oh,
It's 2018.
You have a way better memory than I do. Menopause and COVID. So he said, you two really need to remain friends and stay in contact together, which we have. And it's as our paths have grown, we've done tremendous work, right? That maybe I never would have expected in 2018.
No, it's been, And he said, you guys will be doing work together. And I wouldn't think it would bring us to this, though.
Here we are.
Yeah.
And I'm so joyful, right? Because, our lives parallel between addictions in our family, cancer affecting our family, being empaths, being Jew Italian women. It's amazing, how different our lives are, and yet how many parallels there are at the same time. And so for those of you listening, Italian or not, this is not a segment about Italian women. It's really about that mutual connection that we can have and foster with people, right? It's about that mutual understanding. It's about that mutual struggle that I think we all go through. And so as Diane and I process, as we do before every single one of these segments, the one thing that stands out to us repeatedly is the fact that we didn't feel like we were allowed to own our authentic feelings, and that anger was a big no-no.
Right.
Anger was wrong. When you think about this, though, this is the therapist to me coming through, and hopefully the Reiki master in you, is energy is just energy. And if you hear nothing else today, I really want you to hear this. Energy is energy, and the things we feel, we just intuitively feel. We feel, right? So anger is no different than happiness or sadness or joyfulness or peace. It's just an emotion. It really is. And sometimes we have to go through those feelings of anger to really process the grief that's associated with anger. And maybe our next segment, I don't know, we can talk about this, will be on grief, right? Because if we don't allow ourselves to really process and grieve what needs to be felt, then we kind of live in this land of, I don't know, disingenuousness. Is that a word?
Yeah, it's a word on this channel.
Disingenuous. Oh, it's a word on this channel. I like her. Right? It's like not living in authenticity. It's like still that expectation of what I'm feeling is wrong. And I think we tend to do that, right? It's like right or wrong. And add it for empaths. Oh my Lord. Like that's just not allowed in the vocabulary. So maybe we talk a little bit about what being an empath is. And you had your own journey with this.
Because
So
people don't know they're empaths out there. I didn't know I was an empath.
Me either.
And I would feel hurt, and people would say, well, you're sensitive.
They're overly sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, what's wrong? And they hurt my feelings. Oh, you're just being sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only 20% of us out there. And one thing we want to do is reach the 20% of you.
Come to us.
Because you need your tribe. Because I know I needed the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel understood.
And the best part about being understood is when I say that, it's like, I don't need to explain anything.
Right.
Like there's no word. So maybe we should describe what an empath is. So like, for those of you that like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
But you gravitated toward this channel for a reason, maybe think about that. Like energetically, something pulled you toward this, like a curiosity or just a feeling, right? So empaths feel things really deeply. They have amazing intuition. They just kind of know what they know, even though it doesn't make sense. Like, how do I know these things, right? And so sometimes it can get really confusing. Is it like, I really know this? Or is it my head telling me a story? Is it my anxiety? Because empaths tend to have a great deal of anxiety and trying to manage like the energy of both themselves and every other person. So we're like sponges, right? We just absorb everything that's going on around us. And so that can get really, it's like really head screw, right? It's like scrambled eggs at the end of the day. So if you're even questioning if you're an empath, this would be the time to start asking yourself the questions, right?
Agreed.
At least start asking the questions. And so as I was posed those questions and you were posed those questions, the world actually started to make sense, right? It's like things started to make sense. It's like, oh my God, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Or, oh my God, I'm not the only person that feels these things, right? And so oftentimes, and in addition to traditional psychotherapy, with no disrespect to all my amazing colleagues out there, you know, intuitiveness and empath can be labeled a disarray of so many things: anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, like so many things. But the truth is, like, when you're an empath, you just have a deep understanding and feeling of things, and this sponge-like connection to everyone and everything. And until you learn to manage that, until you really learn to understand and navigate that, it can be really overwhelming. And so part of why Diane and I put together this channel is to speak to everyone, not just empaths, right?
Yeah.
But
right, everyone.
But what did you say? What percentage of people are actually empaths in the world?
20%.
Okay.
Which is a decent amount. But granted, you're out there talking and explaining how you feel. There's a good percentage of chance, because I'm very analytical, that you're talking to that 80%. So there's a good chance you're not talking to your tribe here.
Right. And so 80% is the big bulk of people. Can we agree?
Right. Yes.
Right. So that 20%, although a good number, is like, it's still a small percentage in the huge population. And so what happens to those of us who are empaths is when we try and explain or we try and describe what we're feeling, most people cannot relate to it and just shuts us further down. Like we just get shut down. And so instead of celebrating, right, the fact that you're this amazing 20% super feeler.
And you are amazing.
Truly. It's a gift and a curse. It's a gift when you know how to manage it. It's a curse. It's a bitch when you don't know how to manage it, right? And so that 80% that's reflecting back to you who you are or are not, you know, that's not the percentage you need to be listening to. That's really not. You need to be embraced by those who really get it and understand it. So like Diane and I, we do this amazing empath group on every other Tuesday. What is it? 5 o'clock every other Tuesday?
5 to 6:30.
And like this one woman in the group said, oh my God, I have never felt more seen and heard in my life. And this is by total strangers. Like even people in my life can't understand it, you know? So which kind of circles back to being Italian. And because I don't know about you, but Italians are all about self-expression. And
I talk with my hands, but I'm holding them right now, so I won't.
The claws. Right, because we're really self-expressive and through love and food and all those things. But yet there's a limit to what you're permitted as a woman to self-express, right? And especially if we start talking about intuitiveness and mind, body, spirit connection, etc. It's like there's just like culturally like I don't want to talk about that.
But I'm an energy healer. My family knows it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a therapist, head shrinker, and an energy healer. So I'm kind of like, I accept they're never gonna get it. I really just do. But it hurts me on a deep level because I most want that from the people that I love, right? I want them to understand it and respect it. And so that kind of ties into the anger, right? So the next segment I'm thinking is really going to be about safely exploring the anger within us and not judging. Again, I really want to reinforce, and Diane could follow me here, really reinforcing that anger is not a bad emotion. It's a necessary emotion. But the more we push it away, stuff it down, right? It's going to show up in a variety of other ways, whether that's addiction, what are some other things? Self-destruction, GI issues, autoimmune, right?
You can become a workaholic. I've done that.
Sexaholic, gambling, food addiction. Yeah, I mean, you name it. Like
drug addiction.
Yeah. And we're like hardwired to want to self-medicate, right? As humans, like when we have suffering, we want to self-medicate that suffering. And so it makes sense, right? And during COVID, because we talk about this being the show that kind of emerged during COVID, like there's a host of things we're trying to self-medicate. You know, the isolation.
You might over-exercise. Maybe
or under.
Eating disorder. The opposite way, where you're counting calories, you're not eating enough.
And it's all trying to control those things.
Yes, you want to, right, you want to control.
So if you like what we're saying and it makes sense, join us again to
Be with two Italians
and the women, two Italian women,
and the stories
they tell.
We tell.
Thank you for letting us into your home. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week.
Blessings.